Top of my class, fell in love and it wasn't damned if I lost it. I've been a loser, I've been possessed, but I don't scare easy. I don't fall apart when I'm under the gun. You can take my heart, but you ain't gotta run. I don't scare easy for no one. Anyways, there's some terrible singing to wake you up. In case you weren't up, you're lucky I didn't do like Spinderella or something, or Cinderella. Either one of those would be awful. How are we doing today? I am going to be in pay attention to the chat mode today. We're going to see if folks have questions and if I can help with questions. We are hopefully going to go for about an hour. Also, the stream or the discounts were still going on stuff that's blue, even though it was supposed to be taken down yesterday. They were still going as of an hour ago. So if anybody wanted to hit that Aquatic Arts and stack the code FISH315 with the products that are already discounted 10% to 15% in green, you'll get to stack those codes. It's like the one and only time you can stack codes, basically. So yeah. Yeah. Anyhow, how's everybody doing? Andrew, you're in class. Now you're out. Good to know. House of Pisces, what's up? Aquatic, what's up? Johnny Best, good to see you. Hydrocool Carrot, hello. Yeah, so how are we doing, folks? How are we feeling? I have a problem. It's a good kind of problem. It's one that's like not that serious. It's like not that big of a deal, Alex. It's about a crab that I have. And you guys know about this little crab. He's a pain in my he's a thorn in my side. Let's call him that. Hold on one sec. Let me get a good flashlight rather than this one that is apparently out of batteries. One moment. There's a place where lovers go to cry their tears away, and they call it Lonesome Town, where the broken hearts stay. You can buy a dream or two to last you all through the years, and the only price you will pay is that heart full of tears. So we had a crab in here, a panther crab, a happy panther crab. He was so happy. He had little fish. He had, everything a crab could want. Well, I guess he didn't have a crab girlfriend. He might have, or boyfriend, whatever it is. But he is one of the crabs that can self-multiply under stressful conditions. But he was under there for a while. And then he disappeared. And, I searched the entire tank and I was like, where is he? Where is he? Is he in the land? Is he? He was buried in the back corner, all the way down to the bottom of the substrate and underwater, underground. So he was really underwater. And I was like, that's a weird place for him to be. And if you guys recall, he was gone for 2 whole weeks recently, this crab of mine. And he came out. He hopped out of this. I don't know how he got out of here. This stick was not here. This stick was basically like this. So middle of the tank. So I couldn't figure out, how is he getting up and out? Well, it turns out he was able to wedge his crabby legs in the corner. And I caught him on tape recently. But he put his crabby legs up there, then hopped out, then ran this way, under the door, came out this way, and at like 11 o'clock at night, he came out to right here, covered in dust bunnies. And my wife was sitting right here, and she was like, what in the heck? What was that? And she like screamed when she saw it again because she has bad eyesight. She thought it was a spider that was like 4 inches across, 3 inches across. So she screamed, and the crab literally, so it escaped out of the tank, and you can see the dust bunnies that it has dragged all over, all around the tank edges, because it has brought them with it. And so today I was looking for the dumb crab, and by the way, this crab, yes, it eats fish. It does everything that you wouldn't want an animal to do in your care. Hold on. Let's see. Do we see it? There it is. Can you guys see him? The panther, or her, the panther crab, right there. So it's hiding literally in the concave indentation of this rock. Like the only place it could hide. And literally right now, it has a mouth and a pincher. Here's its pincher. With half a fish in it. It has some sort of fish hanging out of its front pinchers. That little son of a gun. And so it crawled out of its tank again, and I put this lid, one of these that folds, up on it. And it figured out a way still, even with this light bar here, it was able to get it open enough, even like this, to get it up this high and get out. But apparently it chose to go into this tank, and it scared all the fish. So all the fish, boy, that's a dirty tank. I'm sorry, guys. I reached in there to try to find him earlier and splashed water everywhere. But all the fish, including the Corydoras, were all, like, there's some Corys right here in this basket. But they are all huddled from here to here because of that crab. He's been grabbing them off one by one and just eating them. And he was gone for a month at one point, so I was like, what gives? Where is he? And, yeah, it turns out that's where he was the whole time. When he wasn't running around the house causing problems, he was just in one tank over. Now, he didn't go into my molly tank, which kind of surprised me. And the mollies have gotten more and more scared as time has gone on. These are weird fish. They're cool. They're very social for a live bear. Like, you watch them and one male comes out and then a female comes out and then like 5 females come out and then the secondary male comes out and then 3 or 4 more females come out and then the last male comes out. And it's always like that order of things. And there's like 9 females to the male. And here, again, water stain depot. But we've got my cichlids, my black line cichlids moved over here. If you didn't catch it last time, we've got the lovebird love connection up here with these 2 lavender bettas. And then over here, we've got the confirmed pair of beautiful McMasteri red shoulder, or whatever you want to call them. They're a McMasteri Episto. There's the male. I don't know where the female went. Oh wait, here's the male. Here's the male. Wow, the female's so pretty that I mistook her for the male. Look at how pretty she is. Then we got my white cheek gobies doing their thing. And we got coolie loaches. This flashlight makes every tank look terrible, apparently. So I'm not going to use it much anymore. But I just wanted to show you guys that everybody's doing good. On the scud diet, this is the tank that only eats live food too. And they've been eating scuds and then a lot of paramecium. A lot of this stuff here. These little green and white, like, they're almost oval shaped, like an oblong oval. And super tiny. They're really hard to see. There, you can see them really good on the glass. These are green ones. And I don't know if they're clear and they just green because they eat algae, or if they're actually like a green species and then there's a white species and there's another species. But in here you can see what's breaking down. You can see there's cyanobacteria on this one. It's not bugging the scuds. And then I'm doing my whole scud project up here. This is the pink tank for now. I've upgraded. So I flipped it over water-wise, pumped all the water out, And I don't know if they'll lay any eggs in the substrate, but I'll just grab them as I see them, since it's not like really accurate line breeding with these little guys anyways. And they're not a true line now anyways either. But then I feed them all to whoever's in this tank. But what I wanted to say is that it's really making a difference on the color. So you can see the beautiful oranges on this white cheek goby, and the female hasn't done that. Like, this male has colored up incredibly. The female eats a lot less than him of the scuds, and she has a lot less of the redness and orange in her coat, or whatever you want to call it, her scales. There she is back there in the corner over there. Let's see here. So the crab, by the way, is fine. Chang had some of these panther crabs get out, and his panther crabs got out of the water and wandered around his aquarium shop and hid down in the sewer drain, like the emergency sewer drain that he had installed. They lived there for 2 months until they got really desperate one day, and he put a fish food out on the floor, and they came out, and he had his shop motion detector thing on, and that's how he found them, was it went off. And that's where he noticed that they weren't in the tanks. He had sold all the ones in the tanks, but still a few popped up on the floor. So they'd been hiding in the floor, and apparently they can go without water. They can go with or without water. They can be completely underwater and like submerged completely, even with the lid on, for days and days, or they can go on total dry land. So I don't know what the heck is up with those panther crabs, but they are bulletproof. They're crazy survivors. So here is another thing I'm curious if you guys would watch a video on. Let me know in the chat. I'm going to look at the chat and chat with you guys in a second here. But this substrate is almost 9 years old now. I know this flashlight makes every little water stain show. But the flashlight is also going to make all these little details show, and I'll clean it all before I do this episode. But if you guys saw an episode where I told you this is where bacteria died and deposited the iron within, and then told you like where it was storing iron, which bacteria was storing sulfur, what's snail intrusions, what is the Malaysian trumpet snail versus the bigger snails, like the cappuccino snails, what is where the root system of a big plant was, like this guy right here, versus where was just a rock or decor. Like decoding and reading substrate based on what you see, and if it's oxygenated or anoxic. Would anybody be curious to see that? That's kind of what I'm curious to know, amongst other things. And hold on, we're gonna get a few scuds just while we're here, because they get mad at me if I don't feed the need for seed. That is seeds of scuds. Also, man, this is gonna look bad dirty, but because it's right in the sunshine. But these guys are looking top notch. The Beta Maha Chiensis looking great. I wish this Molly would breed. She is a sailfin, and she has a leucistic male with her, and he just never has produced. I'm guessing he's infertile because she's not producing. He's right down here at the bottom at the moment. He's eating a snail or something, algae. I don't know what he's eating. But yeah, these guys have just the color on these from eating scuds is insane. That red, the anthocyanins, the carotenoids, it's made such a difference on all the fish that I really give any of this kind of stuff to. It really matters. So I go in, suck up the scuds. I've been feeding the blackline cichlids. Also, you can see here some of the clear malawas and some clear grass shrimp that I have living together in here. They're just a caridina. They're not technically grass shrimp, but I'm just calling them that because I don't know what they are. They're just either they're some sort of caridina. They're not a neocaridina. They're some sort of caridina. So I just put them squirt all that into here, and then as I'm going around, I will take the same pipette or turkey baster, and I will kick up debris, which will then cause the little scuds and stuff that are in here to go flying around, but it will also clean up the fish tank. It'll be, you know, this is a nice way to do it, is if you've got tanks like this with sand that these aren't deep substrate tanks. They need to be cleaned or water changed, one or the other, or else you're going to turn into just sludgy, sewery stuff. But then I just put this right into these, and these are just like a compost tank. And whether it's whether it's some sort of little larva or worm or blackworm or scud or paramecium, you can see there's planaria right there. But I get detritus worms all over in the bottom of it. And depending on what you put in there, if you put like soda crackers or oatmeal just a little bit, it'll foul up in there, and you get one type of bacteria. If you use all green vegetation, you'll get another kind of bacteria and decomposition. And it's been fun to play with all of that. So I've been having fun trying all that out. Also playing with, in here, if you guys recall, I had all that bacteria growing. And I played with adding an air stone, and then actually doing a water change. I played with a few things, and I'm trying to learn, for those of you who don't have access to antibiotics, I'm trying to find out a quick way to stop cyanobacteria, because I understand what a problem it is for some people, especially in countries where you don't have access to any antibiotics. It is a real problem, and I get that. And so I'm working on trying to figure out a good solution other than the long, like 3 to 5 day solution of turning down the lights, doing a blackout like this tank. I'm getting rid of algae right now in this tank. And the hair grass has actually, I can turn this on for a sec, but to get rid of the algae in this tank, this black beard algae, I'm going to have to actually starve it out. So I actually have to turn off the lights, but not only that, a lot of times people will tell you turn off the light, but that's not all. You have to also put something over the tank. Otherwise, the light from just the rest of the room is going to shine in and is going to cause it to continue to grow. It can grow in the light of, say, a 40-watt incandescent bulb, yet the plants cannot grow at all. And so therefore, all the ammonia and food and anything that's in there becomes algae food. Now I'm hoping this little female, she gives birth soon. She's the hope for the future in this little tank. And so those are the quick updates. Also, if you didn't catch it last time, let me get the flashlight. We still need to figure out what to do here. I think we're going to hold a vote on Discord, what to do in the 65. And then lastly, I was going to show you guys the blue malawas that are in here, because I showed you guys last time, and well, I just like checking on them. And then it's a good, I have a nice log left of it. But here you can see more natural colored ones that are pregnant, and they were in here with the males, like, oh, he jumped, come on, where did he go? They were in here, all the males in here, hopefully, are of the blue varietal. So they should at least have the gene to mix with the females, and all the females were blue when they were not stressed and pregnant. But over time, when they get pregnant, a lot of times they'll lose their blue. But there's a blue one. Come on, back in the corner over here. There's some ram's horn snails galore in here too. There's the blue one. Here he comes. That's actually the least quality blue one that I have too. Let's see. Do I have any over here that have hopped over here now? Yeah, so there's another blue one right there, hopping next to a yellowy one. So not a crazy good quality blue, but kind of a nice aurora blue, like they've been calling that, or sky blue. So I'm working on getting that colony and those genetics back up to where they were before the tank crash that was holding them all. Because that was such a blow to have literally all my blue Malawa shrimp take a beating. Like, I still had their genetics in the overall tank, but I had to pull them all back out. And that room, I need a second dehumidifier this time of year because I am so hot. It's like 86 degrees or something like that in there right now, and the tanks are at about 76, I think. So yeah, there's that. That's a pain in the butt. Let's see. I have been ignoring chat so awfully, but I'm back to be with you, and I'll flip this around so we can look at fish, and you don't have to look at my face because that's boring. Nobody came to this channel to look at my face. We'll take a look at how the guppies are shaping up in this generation. How about that? Let's look at that. All right. Let's get a tripod too. All right. Giggity, giggity, go. And I don't know where any of these little guys, where they're, the plecos that I put in here have just kind of gone MIA, which is annoying. I mean, I see them around every once in a while, but they've kind of gone MIA, which is annoying. Hope life is treating you well. Well, thank you, Daniel Capitano. Thank you so much. So in here, we got a lot of plants. Madman, what's going on? I have an aquarium that's been set up for 3 months with 5 fish. Whenever I add new fish, they all die. The original 5 are fine. It might be that the original 5 are already, like, suited to whatever it is that's the problem. When you put new fish in, they eat food. They also don't eat food, but you add food, which results in more ammonia. That more ammonia then turns into nitrites and then nitrates, and all of it is toxic to your fish. So if you guys are wondering what's going on in this tank, if you didn't watch the video, which I don't think that many people saw it, but I started crossing true double blonde with Blau genetics guppies with a rainbow snake skin. Some people are calling it a red mosaic. I was sold it as a Dumbo-eared red, or a rainbow snakeskin with Dumbo-ear gene. Come back into the center, you goofball. Come on. And he's a purdy fish. He's got every color of the rainbow, blue in the back of the tail. And the all goldfish, the really goldeny yellow ones, that's first generation. Second generation has a little bit of green and blue in their body with patterning rather than no pattern. And even the females of that second generation, they have some pattern in ghosting of the traits in their tail and in the body. So that's kind of cool. And then the females of the third generation, or F4, they have actually a silver body, no gold anymore. It's been replaced to recessive, double recessive. And they have a black tail with other colors starting to form. And we've been wondering what those colors would be. And literally last week, you could only see this one male with the fiery colors in the tail. And the whole reason for doing this was nobody was selling females of this guppy a year and a half or 2 years ago when I originally got this guy. Come on, wherever I turn the camera, he just goes out of screen. So I wanted the Dumbo fins for the ears like that, dark. And I also wanted either like lace or snakeskin or, you know, bluegrass, some sort of pattern like that. But with the full metallic, you know, rainbow color background. And they don't sell the females. So now we're getting somewhere, though, in that his fourth generation crossback offspring is following him around relentlessly, which is kind of funny. But the females in that generation look like... Come on. Come on. like this. There's a female from that generation, looking pretty plain, but they do have a green dorsal fin, and they do have a little bit of color in the tail, a pattern, but I can't tell what it's going to be yet or how big it's going to be, and same with their fins. But there are two males now that have that pattern of this blue body with the eye spot. If you look carefully, you can see they've got the eye spot, and the body color's pretty much the same. Their tail's not quite the same, and their spots aren't quite the same yet. We'll see if they grow into it somewhat, but I don't know. So basically, I should be moving them aside, and really the females aside, and move them all to another tank with harder water that's more specifically set up for them, and take this male as well. Here's another male that's starting to show up some oranges and reds in his coat, whereas before he was just showing off greens. But now we know he has those traits. He has the red, and it's not overly dominant, and it's not recessive. It is showing up somewhat. So he has it showing, and there's a lot of complexities to how these patterns show off. There's another one that has a similar pattern showing there, and this one too. So we've got 4 males of that generation that we can take and put into another tank that are hopefully going to be like the dad. They may not have the fins quite like the dad yet, but I'm guessing one more cross and we can probably get that. That's my hope. If not, then it's going to require a whole lot of reorganizing and rethinking things. So this tank needs water really bad. I mean, not really bad. It needs about 1.5 inches of water. The rocket killifish. The rocket killifish are in here, and that's why there's so many plants in here. All the Wolfia is in here because of these rocket killifish. I refuse to call them clown killies, even though everyone calls these that, or they'll call them Aphosimian or Panchax, or sorry, wait, I can't remember if they're what are they, Panchax? Anyways, the other name is Annulatus, I think, is their actual species name, which means like ring or like round valve, ring around them. But I think Rocket Killy would be way better. So I think Rocket Eye. I forget what their genus is. Somebody knows, I'm sure. But yeah, I love them. They're a lot of fun. Here is a male that I thought was a female. Here's another male. So it means that I've got at least 2 males there, and here is a female. And I want to point out, a lot of people don't realize the females actually have a really pretty red or copper stripe inside their like in their body. I don't know if it's like veins in their stomach and all that, but it's like a beautiful copper color that you see when they're healthy. And yet again, here's another male. So I thought I had 6 females and 2 males to work with originally, and that has turned into 3 or 4 males and 3 or 4 females now that they've grown up. So they are a little bit sneaky, but it's not like the males are going to fight like terribly. And here's a female again with she has no little afterburner, no little rocket tail. She's just got that red line, the blue eyes, a little bit of yellow in the tail. It still comes to a point like a little jet engine though, like this one. And here's another female with that nice copper or red ribbon streak showing. Oh, come on, now the fancy guppy wants to get in the way of everything. Now he wants to be the star of the show. Of course, that's always how it goes. So, let's sit down for a moment, shall we? I am hot. I'm feeling hot, hot, hot. How are we doing, guys? I am, like I said, hot in that fish room. So, I'm here now in the chat. I did miss whoever did anything. I don't see any super chats or any big question things or, they've been here X amount of months or memberships or anything. So I'm going to hope it's okay to jump. If I'm wrong, please tell me. But I'm going to hope it's okay that we jump down and that now we are live so that I'm not answering questions from anybody who's not actually here. Yeah, okay, let's see here. Blackbeard algae took over one of my tanks, and I don't know besides just starting over, but I have nowhere to put fishes. So fish and gaming, I would tell you that Blackbeard is a tough one. It really is. You can do things like reduce your ammonia if you have any, obviously. That's always a first step. Next, phosphates. Now, a lot of people don't have the phosphate test. Is it worth getting? It's hard to say. It's probably just cheaper to buy a pad that sucks up phosphates, that off brown. They're like a tannish color. They're made by several companies, but you can just cut a little square, like yay big, maybe an inch or 2 or 3 centimeters by 2 or 3 centimeters, inch and a half by an inch and a half, and just put that in your filter or in the pre-filter, and then that will help. It will bond with the phosphorus or phosphates, which is a lot of times fueling that. Now, the other thing that's going to be fueling that, obviously, is light. And it's always a catch-22. I have 2 videos, one called, Can I Be Giving My Aquarium, or Can Low Light Cause Algae? And the answer is yes. I kind of explained it in the other room for a minute. But what happens is if you don't have strong enough light that's on and off, when it's on, your plants should be sucking all the nutrients out of that tank. They should be using up all of it more effectively than your algae. And this holds true for all types of algae. But if you have a light that's kind of weak, low light, or ambient light in the room once your light's off, you can have only 4 or 6 hours, 5 hours, whatever you want, of light a day. And if it's intense light, that's enough for your plants to thrive, even high light plants in some cases. But the algae only needs a light like this in the room, or even like the one way back there in the room on for, 4 or 5 hours to survive indefinitely. Let alone if there's a window like this, even that much coming in. If you could see the print on a book, that's more than enough for low light plants to be growing, actually, which is pretty crazy when you think about it, and way more than enough for algae to be growing. So you can do that. You can do water changes. You can use hydrogen peroxide to actually kill the infestation of blackbeard algae. And that is probably the safest way to do it, is you get a little syringe or even a hypodermic needle, and you put pure hydrogen peroxide, or 70%, whatever you want to use, and then you can dilute it, or you can look up online. There's different recommendations, but it's poisonous only for a minute, and it kills living cells only for about 30 seconds to a minute. Then it breaks apart and it turns into hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon, and literally turns into water, CO2, oxygen, and nitrogen gas, and it just floats away. So it's actually a really cool molecule or chemical in that sense, that it can kill bacteria, it can kill like cyanobacteria, it can kill lots of things if you have enough of it, but in the case of plants or algae or cyanobacteria, it'll kill it very well. Epiplates, thank you so much. Trying to think of that genus, and of course Mick knew right off the bat. Fish heads, eat them up, fish heads. Any advice keeping the rocket killifish? People say they jump. Mine don't. I've never had rocket killifish jump in 15, well, that's not quite true. 10 years now of keeping them with planted tanks. When I kept them before that, I remember like years and years ago when I was in my early 20s, I had a tank with some, and they were in with guppies. And if you put them in with like Danios or barbs, or something that moves around a lot high in the water, they might get startled and jump by that movement, and or like a fish just zooming around being kind of hectic. But if they're in a relaxed tank or a nano tank, and there's plants that go to the surface as well as floating plants, they don't jump like that very often at all. I would say even like an inch of glass is probably plenty. Um, will CO2 impact blackbeard algae? That's a great question, Andy. And yes, CO2 will impact it in that CO2 is steroids for plants and it is for algae to a degree, but not to the same degree as your plants. So let me think of an example. It would be like taking a world-class marathon runner and giving them steroids versus giving a sumo wrestler steroids. And I mean that comparison. So yeah, they both might do okay at what they do. They might the sumo wrestler might bulk up and get a little more muscle. He'd be bigger. He'd put on weight. But the algae, all it can do is kind of float around and be algae, and plants can actually put out leaves and put tissue into where it matters and reallocate resources through their vasculature network, and they can open and close in night and day, and they have a respiration rate and everything. So they're able to, decide how much of the sugar to convert into energy, how much ATP to use in the cells. These are all things that a complex life form can do. Algae is much more simple, even though it's still considered a plant. And so, like blackbeard algae and things like that, it's like the sumo wrestler versus the sprinter. Your plants are the sprinter. If you put CO2 in there, you're giving your plants steroid, and they are going to suck all the nutrients, all the food at the buffet out of the water. So there's not even any in there for the sumo wrestler to eat so that he can benefit from the steroids. So the idea is to suck all of that out of the way of your aquarium, out of the water, to turbocharge your plants, and they're going to use it much more efficiently. Therefore, they'll use all the resources, including the light and everything, more efficiently. So in a way, yes, CO2, if you are adding pressurized CO2, it can help reduce the amount of blackbeard algae or any algae. That being said, it won't prevent it simply having it. If you add a lot of fertilizers and there's enough fertilizers for the plants and then some, then it will still grow, and you're giving steroids, in the metaphor, to your sumo wrestlers too. So I hope that kind of makes sense. That's probably the best way I could explain it without getting into a lot more science. Leah, I'm butchering your name. I'm sorry, and I can tell it's a pretty name. Man, I'm killing it. Alex posted earlier, Betta fish jumped from tank about an hour ago, was out for 1 to 2 minutes. He's still lethargic. Please talk me off the ledge. Okay, I'm so sorry to hear that. We'll go with Leia, like Princess Leia. I just didn't want to be culturally insensitive if that's not what it is. So I would say definitely if he was on the ground and he got dust bunnies on him, that's very common when a fish jumps. If you got him back in the water, they're air breathers. They won't have any burns or anything, but what you may want to do is you want to get a catappa leaf, an almond leaf, or if you don't have that, go outside and get an alder leaf, a maple leaf, an oak leaf, any type of dried leaf, a brown or yellow, crunchy, dry leaf, and put that in their tank. 1 or 2 of those. Alder cones will work, cholla wood will work, spider wood will work. Any of the woods with tannins in it. Mopani driftwood works great, like for reptiles, that long wood that's like dark reddish brown. That dark colored wood that's all knotted. That works well too. And I would say add an air stone and put it on low. So the fish can go to the surface and breathe, but for a betta that's been stressed, it may in its tank be hanging out at the top and gulping for air. And that's because it's freaked out. It was just on the ground and like in trouble, needing like water bad. And then it probably dried out and it had this feeling like something's going on with my breathing, and it's not smart enough to know what. So it probably is in the tank assuming it was something with my breathing. I need to stay near the air. They just do that. The other thing that they'll do oftentimes is they'll sink to the bottom and sit in the corner or sit, hidden with all their fins kind of clamped, and they'll kind of just tensely sit there and not move much at all. That if they're at the bottom, then the air stone is more important if they're at the top, because they can breathe air from their mouth. If they were born in captivity, which most bettas are, like pretty bettas, fancy bettas, betta splendens, I'm assuming it's not a wild betta, then you actually that the air stone isn't a bad idea anyways, because not all captive born bettas can use their labyrinth organ, because it needs to be around 80% humidity when they are a fry and they're at the top of the water forming in the first 2 weeks. They need 80% humidity in that air right over the tank, or their labyrinth organ doesn't form and it won't open up. And same with gouramis. So sometimes if they're a strain that's for the hobby, you don't want to always assume that they can breathe from the water totally fine. The labyrinth organ lets them breathe basically through their sinuses, kind of, and then absorb it through the blood system in a passageway behind their face, kind of like our sinuses. Now, other fish like Corydoras, they gulp air and then they absorb it through what is their intestines, or their colon. So they kind of do the reverse of farting. They take air in and absorb it into their blood in their tummy, and then basically fart out the rest of the gases that get made and split. It's pretty crazy. But fish have different ways of breathing, and that's what you're soothing. So the other thing, other than catappa leaves, which are going to be antimicrobial, because the next thing you're going to worry about after the fish is being able to breathe is you're going to worry about the fact that it's been rolling around on the floor, its slime coat got dried out, and now there's dust bunnies or dirt or lint or whatever stuck on it. And those could each have a potential bacterial infection. So you want to take care of those, in that you could rinse the fish off gently with some dechlorinated water, or even just put it in your hand and kind of slosh it around if this was right away. I'm just telling this to everyone if your fish jumps out of the water, get that crap off of them. And if you want, depending on the fish, in the next few hours, you can prepare a salt dip. You can Google online what to do, but just a 30-second salt dip, like 30 seconds out, back into normal water, 30 seconds out into normal water, 30 seconds out, back into normal water for 5 minutes. And that's going to cause their body to make more mucus. That salt does. It draws the water out, just like when you put salt on a slug and it like gets all slimy. Fish, in less of a death way, they bring their immune system forth by making snot. It helps them push out the bacteria. And there are antimicrobial properties in that slime, the mucus that is their slime coat. So then the catappa leaf, that's going to both take the pH and probably reduce it, in which bacteria does not want to grow in a low pH or acidic environment. And it's also going to have some sugars and compounds that are naturally found in plants that also reduce the chance of bacteria thriving. And, it reduces the chance of the secondary infection. So between the salt dip to activate its mucous membrane again and rinsing it off, and then having it soothing, you can add API with aloe, like the dechlorinator or the water conditioner. You can just cut a little piece of aloe vera plant and put it in there also, but that will help lubricate their actual gills also if those got dried out, because they were going to still try to breathe underwater even when they came up out of the tank and there was no underwater going on. So yeah. So I see, hold on, let me hop to this super chat. Oh, you got the Higer 957. Right on. I hope you like it. Hey, honey. You want to be on this?
Hi.
Hi. I know. I was just in the fish room. Hey, come here.
Right.
Anyways, so I saw another question. Philip Skipper, Cecil Mayberry, hello. Luke Wong, what's up? Still would need to deal with source so the algae doesn't come back. Yeah, totally. Google the 1-2 punch method. Peroxide. What is going? Oh, it's a skeleton. Oh, hi, little skeleton. This was our this poor thing would have been 1 year old today. If bad joke. It's our metal baby. But we have a real cool skeleton.
Babe, I saw you move them.
Oh, yeah. It's about that. That didn't have anything to do with a really immature joke that we did. Oh, wow. They don't really look so... Okay, guys. Pardon what this is going to look like. But the skeletons are supposed to be standing side by side, like with the pitchfork, like the American Gothic thing. But instead, it kind of looks like one standing behind the other one because they're kind of awkward. But I don't know. I guess somebody might have to tell their kids about the birds and the bees tonight. Uh, so I saw another question though. Where was that question? If I were the king of the forest. Okay. I just add some CPDs to a tank. What would you say is the best for spawning a small community? Sawasser Tang or Java Moss? Probably Java Moss for a small community. They'll pick at it on Java Moss, whereas it's more likely to fall through and get to the ground if you have a bunch of Sawasser Tang and then some open air for them to move around, open water to move around. But if there's like 5 of them or something, I think the Java Moss is more of like a snaring net to catch them. It's just the adults might eat the eggs if they pass by them again. Let's see here. Yeah, I have some other posts, Fish and Gaming, about phosphates too. I have a whole hour-long video on the phosphate cycle that not many people are going to want to watch, but that's what this channel's about, you guys. I spend a month researching some crazy thing, and I'm like, that has so much to do with like so many things in life and the universe and like biology and physics, and they're using this on the space shuttle and blah blah blah, and I get like on all these tangents, and then I like cut away 90% of that, and I'm like, okay, well, I understand this subject really good for this week, and I make a video on it, and then you get what you get, but and I try to keep the interesting stuff. But Random Things HD, help me. I have tank setup been up, running, empty with plants. And I added red cherry shrimp, but they were flicking all over and died within 2 hours. I'm going to guess ammonia is probably the cause. Or you may have too acidic or too alkaline of water. So shrimp are very, very sensitive to the well, copper for one, but iron being really high, copper being really high, the metals in general, they're pretty sensitive to, and copper is real deadly to invertebrates in general. So if there's any chance that there's something copper in there or in your drinking water, it takes like a few parts per million to start killing shrimp. But the most common thing is going to usually be the fact that you're shocking them and they were in, say, 8.0 water with a TDS of 500 in a Neocaridina shrimp, and you put it into 100 TDS water with 6.0 pH, and that's going to shock them. They need to be in very neutral water. So Neocaridina shrimp roughly should be in neutral water, 6.8 to 7.8, I would say, and a medium TDS or KHGH, like KHGH of maybe 6 to 10. It's a fairly wide range. Whereas Caridina shrimp, they need to be like a KH of like 3 to 8, depending on the species, unless they're like Poso or like one of the crazy Sulawesi Caridinas or one of the the Caradinas that live in saltwater some of their life, like Amanos and things, they can handle hard water. They can handle alkaline water and a pH that's pretty high, but and they can handle some swings. But it's all about time and also temperature. You can't keep them over about 80 degrees if they're not used to it. Like suddenly putting them in a like 84-degree tank will kill a lot of shrimp. If they're being shipped or you got them at the store and they've cooled to like 72, putting them into an 82-degree tank even could shock them and kill them. So you always want to acclimate the shrimp, let them float, mix half the water, see how they react in that stage for an hour if you have the time to do that, especially if you're new to it. Yeah, 101 views with 31 likes. We got 45 likes now. Y'all are terrible at liking. I just want to tell you that. I'm battling hair algae that came up after I removed CO2 from the tank. It's been about a month of manual removal treatment. What should I do now? Water parameters are fine. I'm not fertilizing. I'd put the CO2 back in, hold off on the fertilizer. But if you don't put the CO2 back in, eventually the algae will calm down, especially if you're manually removing it and doing water changes. That will help. Now, a lot of people see my tanks and they've seen my videos where I'm like, I've never done a water change on this tank. I only do top offs. I'm not telling you that that's a way to keep a tank that's algae free. I'm telling you that's a way to keep an ecosystem that's holistically complete. You're going to have algae of 5 different types. You're going to have a bunch of amphipods and copepods and isopods. All the pods. You're going to have tide pods living in your aquarium. I swear. But it depends on what you're going for. If you want a clean and tidy aquarium with no algae anywhere to be seen, there's ways to accomplish that, but it's going to involve water changes, good filtration, and keeping things like phosphates on a low end. Let's see here. I feel like I've gotten behind again already, so I'm jumping back down. Johnny, and also House of Pisces, Amano Shrimp, Gamer1, Necromancer. Are you like Necro Candy, but like the Necromancer, but like the Necromancer? Like you eat that chalky candy? You bring chalky candy back from the death? Let's see here. Hey, Fishy Folk. What's up, Pets Corner? Good to see you. Alright, let's see here. Mick says, I believe the African butterfly cichlid eat snails too. At least that's what my LFS keeps telling me. You're not talking about the butterfly fish, right? That swims only at the top. Those have been in the hobby since 1888, by the way. They came in with Victorian mouth brooders as some of the first African fish into Hamburg. Thanks, guys, for showing some love with the like button. I do appreciate it. I do. It makes me so happy. Will you produce a pH level microwave? Okay. Okay. Amano shrimp and scuds make for a clean tank. That's true. They sometimes eat plants, new buds on plants. The scud part of that equation, but they will eat algae also. They eat it. You guys saw my nasty tanks. I have to add algae and fish poo and dirty water to that to keep it nasty, to keep those and planaria and paramecium and detritus worms, to keep them in there. So if you want a natural tank, I have such dirty, low oxygen tanks that in theory, they're even too bad for fish, and that's where I'm culturing those critters. Now, there are some fish that would do well. Aquatic Moose, good to see you, man. Shaking bottles. True, I found my Tide Pods all migrated to my aquarium last night. Yeah, that's right. Hit the like button or subscribe. Yeah, see, I forget to say those things, so I like reading them. Thanks, guys. You're the best. Cheryl Smith, what's up? You know, I think a lot of cichlids can learn to eat snails. Almost all fish, even tetras and rasboras, if you smash a snail in a tank, they'll come and they'll pick at it. So there's something tasty inside snails. I mean, the French figured that out years ago. I mean, they only figured it out like a million years after the fish, but eventually the French got it. Uh, Robert Bennett, what's going on? Looking for another side button. The only other one is upside down. I'm not using that one. Uh, I think it's the double tap if you're on mobile, if you want to hit the like button. I don't know. There is the little dot, dot, dot button, which I think lets you share and maybe read the description. It's different for mobile, it's different on Mac, Android, PC, tablet. Those are all different. Linux, that's another different one. And then it formats different sizes if you're on an Xbox or a Roku or a PlayStation or whatever. It's so frustrating how all these platforms, they can't just streamline things. They can't just make a USB 3 that works. Like now there's like USB 3s. It drives me insane. Um, Nearite Polygyria to help with bearded algae. Yeah, I think flagfish, the Siamese algae eater that is known as the reticulatus. It has a diamond on its tail. I have a video about it. And there are three main Siamese algae eaters you see in the hobby. One has a big stripe down the side and a diamond on the tail, black stripe, black diamond. Another kind is the Chinese algae eater, which is a golden color and it has whiskers or onodontodes, and that's a more aggressive fish, generally speaking. Plus, it gets 10 to 14 inches, depending on who you ask and where you get it. And then the other kind has the black stripe with no diamond on the tail. The kind you want is the one with just a diamond on the tail. That's a black diamond, no line down the side. You can just see its scales look almost like a knight's armor. It looks like mail, like chainmail. Chainmail is a redundant term, but it looks like mail armor, almost like. Never mind. I was gonna say something else redundant. Fishery, what was the magic algae eating autosynclus that Moonlight Aquatic sell? Oh yes, the autosynclus are a fidgety one in that a lot of them only eat a certain type of algae or they only eat biofilm on algae, and then inadvertently they break the algae off and eat it and swallow it, which is what happens with plecos. Most plecos are not truly going after like chunks of algae. They're going after, and you can look in the taxonomy books and things that are out there or published articles and look at what their teeth in their throat look like. If they look like cheese graters and a million little fingers, those are their pharyngeal teeth. And that if they look like baleen on a whale, like combs of fingers and like almost like hair, then that means they're there to eat, to grab as sifted through and push like this. They're there to grab like at the car wash, those the flapper things. They're there to hold on to anything that is in the algae or on a plant leaf or whatever, and to be able to swallow that, hold on to the bigger chunks, and spit that out through the gills or out the side. But that is the marbled or zebra autosynclus. Regular, good old-fashioned autosynclus that's in the hobby is great too. But the little ones are good too. The miniature ones with the orange eyes, very cool. They have those there as well. The RoboCop ones and the Kokama ones, also all great. But just do your research on what it is that they eat. If it says biofilms and algae, they really need to do a lot of updating because a lot of the old books say they eat algae. And when they literally put them in a tank with algae and a biofilm, or rather a cycled tank of algae versus a sterilized, UV sterilized tank of algae, they found that in their gut, there was not a bunch of algae in the gut of the non-cycled algae. Whereas they found that when the algae was full of covered in life, in bacteria and fungi and little critters, that they actually just would eat the algae because that was less work calorically and metabolically than it would be to comb through that much substrate or that much surface area. Michael Myers, what's up? Algae microplants. I don't mind it. Hard to stabilize to keep. Oh, okay. Hey. Let's see here. Cecil Mayberry, what's up? How do I ensure my Daphnia survive? Oxygen. And also, it's good to have a shift in temperature if at all possible. So, in the day, if you can control that, if you can have their temperature go up to, say, 72 degrees, and then in the night go down to like 58, that would be ideal. But for Daphnia monea, but I know that's a tall order for people who have a totally indoor setup. So, if you can just get any temperature difference, like in the day, maybe you have it at 80, and at night you or the other way around. Wait, no, that way, yeah. So nighttime's cooler, and also bright light in the day. You need algae. You need green water. You can't just have stringy algae. Stringy, slimy, filamentous algae is okay. They will kind of feed off that, break little pieces off. They'll eat that. But what they really want is single cell green water algae, the kind that makes the whole water kind of a green, foggy color. Or they'll even eat the little microorganisms like protozoans and things that are like when you see a tank and it looks foggy and you look closer and it almost looks like little bubbles or white dots that are just like everywhere when you shine a light through it at night, especially. That is what they like to eat. That's what a lot of those critters like to eat. And making that is, you can take like kale or celery or broccoli. You can take squash, whatever, you can take a lot of different greens or any tough like gourds, and you can heat them up and like parboil them or whatever you want to do. Get them mushy so that the starches have been converted and everything too, ideally. And then throw in some fresh too. Put that in a cup of room temperature water and just let it sit with oxygen exposed to the top of the cup. Like, it doesn't need to be an air stone, would help even more, but it can get stinky. And then UV light is the third ingredient to that cup. And even if you didn't bring any starter kit or you didn't inoculate it, that will spark into all sorts of microbial and mycorrhial, as in able to be seen with the eyes but not microscopic. So mid-sized creatures like paramecium, they'll start growing too, and that's what we call infusoria. That will also help the food web for Daphnia. So learning to keep infusoria and green water, those are great skills. They're also incredibly important for a lot of tiny fish species. That is by far like the best thing for a lot of those species. All right, let's see here. I think I saw something. Oh, right, here we go. Necromancer, $2.99. Learn more from Alex than your environmental science degree. Wow. Well, I'm honored. I'm sorry that your degree may have been less than stellar, if that's the case. I'm skeptical. But the goal, you guys, with the Discord now live. Did I mention the Discord's live? Wow, I should probably talk like Luke or Owen Wilson. That's Luke Wilson. Now that I got this headband on. Bust my nose. I already have bust my nose a few times. If you guys can't tell, I busted it this way. I busted it that way. 2 different times. But, wow. Thank you, buddy. Thank you, Necromancer. You Necco-eating foo. Let's see here. I feel like I just skipped over some stuff. Where did it go? Alex, I was thinking of buying a microscope to see life in my 4-year-old Deep Eco complete red and black deep never vacuum substrate. Do it. Don't buy the cheap microscopes though. Get a real microscope. If you can, get it used. I mean, look in like put an ad up on like your local Facebook in search of compound lens microscope. You want the 400 times zoom if you really want to get into things. 1,000 times is even better, but you'll get an eyepiece that's 10 times or 3 times zoom, and then you should get probably another one that's 40, another one that's 20 or 80, and then another one that is 100 or something like that. Like there's different kits out there. It depends if you like 1 or 2 eyes. If you want it to be run through a screen, I would say don't buy the digital ones. Most of them are just snake oil. They're just trying to sell you something. They're trying to upsell you and say, oh, it's a digital microscope, when really digital microscopes for digital photography and imaging, they're actually like $5,000. They're going to be really expensive. They're going to have a DSLR camera. They're going to be lit differently. Baleen was my nickname in college. That's funny that I just happened to pass through that. How to care for Myrophyllum man, I can never say that. Tuberculatium. Talk to talk to Luke Wong about that. He would be the person to ask about any plants that are tricky. I don't actually know like what to tell you about that plant, honestly. Like what's different about it or unique. And I'm just being frank. I could be Bob, but I'd be lying to you. So I'm going to be frank, and I'm going to tell you that I don't know about that plant any different than any other plant. I would have to do some research before I got into it, so sorry that I can't help. Does Melifix and Pimafix actually do anything? It's crazy to me that they always peddle them both at the store as, I think Melifix has, what does it have in it? I don't know. I can't remember what's in those. Let me look real quick. I've got a computer here. Come with me. You will see a land of something, something, imagination. Do-do-do, do-do-do. I should have streamed in the computer, and then we would have been turned this way, but only like 40 of you would have showed up. Because YouTube is trying to bury the channel, because I've been boring and in hospitals. I said hospitals. Sorry if I offended any of you by saying hospitals 3 times now. But I like saying hospitals. Okay. Melifix. All the things that people buy that are like boo, 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 these kind of dealios, the API, like water in a jug, don't do that. Buy the leaves and make yourself 100 gallons of it. But Melifix, I don't know what exactly, like, let me, I would have to see the ingredients to understand what, well, let's see. It is a remedy, all natural, antibacterial. That's a lot of things. Tannins do that. It works to treat infections in fish, common bacterial infections, open wounds, abrasions. So that means that if it were an antibiotic, it would be a gram positive. However, it is not as strong as an antibiotic, or it would be an antibiotic. Fish remedy also promotes growth of damaged fin and tissue, so it's an amino acid or a vitamin or nutrient, I would guess. And let's see here. Will not affect biological filter, alter the pH, or discolor the water. I don't really know. Safety sheets. Melifix, is this the safety data sheet? Mars Fish Care, does it say? Chemical warning, wash eye. So there is a safety data sheet. Oh wait, here we go. What's it say? I can't even read how small this thing is. Let's look for this. It said the active ingredient. This is how you can figure out trade secrets. Is you go to the safety data sheet and then you look for what people are allergic to. Okay, so it is and I don't trust any of these things, but just for the sake of a quick lookup, it's Kajaput, Kayaput. I don't know how to say it. I don't know anything. Oh, camphor and methanol are what are in it. Okay, and I can tell by the structure of the molecule. All right, so it's witchcraft. No, there's some truth to it. I think you're better off with botanicals, to be honest. Get the water, the pH, the botanicals, the oxygen, get that good. Put a little bit of aloe vera in the water if you need to, and that will help soothe. It's not going to be a super powerful thing. Apparently, it's just a thing that exists because they're illegal. It's illegal to sell or to sell antibiotics in a lot of places. How many zebra ottos would you put in a tank? Do they need a school? A school would be great. There are, I would get probably, yeah, I mean, I put 9 in my 50-gallon out here. Uh, but I would say that they are a social fish. In the wild, they're in the groups of hundreds or thousands, and they behave very differently when in a big group. The thing is, can you feed them? Can you commit to producing that much biofilm and algae in your tank? That's the hard part. Um, and yeah, that's the hard part. Let's see here. Uh, there's a new thermostat timer marketed on the Amazon that allows for day and night cycle temps. Right on. Yeah, there are a bunch of different products out there now. I mean, Inkbird's been out a while as a thermostat that you can set, and that works. There's other ones out there too, but Inkbird's the one that has been around probably the longest and is the most well integrated into the hobby that I've heard about. Um, Let's see here. Alex, I recently found a sponge mix in with moss I collected from a creek. Any information on freshwater sponge? Oh, sponges like that. Okay. Kind of looks like SpongeBob's parents. Yeah. So sponges, I have a whole series of when I didn't know what a freshwater sponge was, like in my tank, or a bryozoan or bryozoan. And I have done videos on both now. And there's a video called Bob the Blob. And if you go and type in at Fishery, no exclamation point needed, just at Fishery and then freshwater sponge or sponge fishery. You should find the Bob the Blob live stream where I talk about it. And then I did a standalone episode or two about it as well. But the long and short of it is long to short of it is that it is usually a good sign that you have water from either an alpine source or a very very clean aquifer or well that is not sealed off and is not ancient still water. It means that there is actual live activity and bacteria biology going through there, but it's on very pristine, very low TDS, and very low nutrients usually in there. There's usually also silicates in the source. So it's very common in the Rocky Mountains and the Olympics, the Cascades, Sierra Nevadas. It's very common in high mountain streams. They can also survive as little tiny, like a few cells, and they'll grow in a network. And if you just let them be, they don't require light. But if you just let them be, they will spread out and grow. They are in Animalia Kingdom, and they are really cool. They're not harmful at all, and they will look neat. I have a few videos. I had at one point it spreading all over and actually forming like complex shapes, like geometric shapes. And then, I took a sample just by scraping some of the cells and I gave it to a friend and nothing happened. So then I tried again and then it died and I didn't know what happened. I was like, oh, I killed it. A year later, it came back, not like a year to the day or anything. It wasn't like, I'm back, I'm a sponge. I want some baby cells. No, it wasn't like that. But it did come back just in our tap water. Apparently, it is carried and it's not harmful. And they're very, very small little seed cells that start it. Only needs one or two, a couple cells. I don't know, one cell probably. And that starts it. And I did give it to a few people in the club that it worked for when I gave them to it. Now, the cooler thing was that a few people that got fish out of that tank that were just in with like guppy grass or sawasser tang, they just got some junk from that tank and it did not visibly have any sponge stuff on it. And their tanks then started getting sponges. So it does spread, but it's very cool. Any thoughts on calci sand as a substrate layer? If you have really soft water, that's probably fine, Aquamoose. I don't know the rate at which it dissolves. If you have very soft water, if you have really acidic water in your tank already and you dumped it in, you might get like a really hard spike in water. But for the most part, you're just going to be buffering your tank more, making your water harder. So if your goal is to do that and you want like a Rift Lake tank or a Lake Tanganyika or Malawi style tank, or you want like cenotes of Mexico or Guatemala style, like live bear or cichlids that like that harder water there, like a lot of live bears do that are saltwater or brackish water. Then I think you could give it a go. But if you're doing tropical fish like rasboras, tetras, angelfish, corridoras, things like that, then I would probably do some studying on it first, or find other people who did it. Just because you don't know at what point uh, it will be depleted and then crash, or what point it's even useful and so forth. Hey man, would you recommend any heater brands? Nope. All heaters seem to have problems. If you can get a thermostat, well, if you can heat the room. If you need to heat more than that, I do use heaters myself. I have had them fail many times. It's very frustrating. If you have a lot of tanks with a lot of heaters, you're going to run into this a lot. I have a few videos of a couple catastrophic failures. I'm lucky didn't start a fire. And the manufacturers are well aware that they just fail at a certain point in about a 5-year lifespan. And that most people will have one tank and they'll give up the hobby before 5 years, so they don't really care. That's the math they do on a lot of them. Now, I would say Eheim or some of the more reputable European brands are probably best in that they will service you, customer service wise. They will deal with you. They'll help you through things. There's someone to actually call. Period. A lot better than like Aquarium or something like that. The big box brands and the ABC third-party labeling brands, like if you're buying heaters, I also don't mind Higer. I haven't had any problems with them yet, but out there in general, I'm sure somebody's had problems with them because, it's been told to me by people who work at aquariums or who like breed rare fish that they don't use industrial heaters. They'll heat water in a room or through a system like a boiler system or something big for like a big aquarium, and then they'll hold that as a reservoir and they'll be able to add hot water or cold water and adjust that way. Or the room will be heated. It's just not how they do things with really expensive setups anymore, because a coil that heats up and then cools down and then heats up to orange hot and then cools down over and over and over and over, it's gonna the tensile strength of it just diminishes over time and it's gonna fail at some point. And you don't want that to be at the point that you need it, or it's staying on and then cooking your fish. And so that's why it's good to have a thermostat in there, so you can set it to, if it hits 82 degrees, kill the power on the light and the heater, and then it'll just turn it off. That's probably the best way to go, is to get little thermostats from Inkbird or any of the other brands anybody's recommending. I haven't researched that for a while, but yeah. Hey, what's up, Ian? Good to see you, man. David Adkins, what's going on? Mala Luca, hello. Melaleuca. Okay. Is it an extract from a tannin-rich plant? Probably. I don't know. Something along those lines. Snake oil? Yeah, it's snake oil. That's what Melafix is. My local fish store got some sponge-like thread formed growth looking like sponge. That's a freshwater sponge I've heard about in the trade. Sponge-like thread form. Interesting. Um, let's see here. Alex, do you know if autosynkless eggs are adhesive? I don't, and I would guess they're not. I would guess they're an egg scatterer in the riffles and in the fine gravel of creeks that flow and are well oxygenated, but I don't know that for a fact. That's just my guess and my slight recollection. Let's see here. Oh, Shaken Bottles. Mick, Shaken Bottles says he'll try to post a video. It's kind of interesting. It seems like it's letting off spores or it's cloning itself, but with smaller sponges, they keep popping up on the moss. Yes, that's what they do. So you'll get a big one maybe on the back of the glass or something or on a rock. Usually looks not like a big kitchen sponge, but a thin layer of sponge is how they most commonly form. But there are hundreds of species out there, and you could get one of the really unusual ones. Most of them are very temperate water friendly. They're not super popular in the tropics. They're more of a temperate to even like Arctic and alpine thing that happens in the summer and then goes away. But there are some in the tropics as well. But the salt water really takes the cake on those. How long would you let parrot cichlid fry grow before splitting them up? Probably until they started ripping each other's fins or ramming each other's gills. If I started seeing damage on the fish, I would split them up. If the parents are eating the babies or you see that going on, I would split that crew up. It's kind of a play it by ear thing with cichlids. Sometimes their parents can grow all the way up with them to like sexable age, and other times they start eating them like 4 days later when they just get fed up with like waiting. So it is kind of different, and the same species can be very different, different times, different setups. If you have enough room, if it's a big tank like a 120 gallon, then you probably don't need to worry about doing too much other than giving them areas. So, like little rock piles with voids for the fish to get in there, and maybe a log that's not big enough for a catfish or a big fish to get into. Or the parents, but maybe like Troya wood where the babies can like zoom into there, So stuff like that is always really good. And if you've got that and floating plants with roots like water lettuce hanging down that can disguise the babies there, most fish will either have bottom babies that hang out on the bottom and eat little morsels out of the bottom, and they comb the bottom of things like Corydoras and stuff. And even those babies, when they're really young, a lot of times they will eat in the corner of the glass. They'll feed off the glass. But then there is the other kind that hangs out right in the open up top, and they're usually from shallow ponds in the forest and stuff. Is why, like they don't have a big what do you call it? Predator, not a big predatory pressure. Fishery, will products that neutralize copper make the other metals in the water and plants become unavailable? No. So most things that neutralize like iron or copper or for that matter ammonia and chlorine, it doesn't get rid of it usually. It turns it into a chemical bond, and it's either going to be a strong chemical bond, which tends to be a violent reaction, and we don't want to use those because that's an explosion or a lot of heat gets released or light or energy, period. So we tend to want the calmer reactions and like oxidation reactions and things like that. That yes, they can be deadly to life forms, but they're a slower, more predictable thing. And so you kind of want to think about it as a general rule. If you're locking something up or if you're using something like a water clarifier, think of it as putting a cage around like somebody, like all the little cloudy bits of, say, iron or copper in your water that's dissolved in your water and it's floating around in between water molecules. And each little particle is chilling out there and just going, "Wah!" And then all of a sudden, this different compound floats by and basically puts it in a life preserver, and now its arms are stuck like this, and it can kick a little bit, and then all of a sudden more of it comes on and it holds onto the legs, and it's like, oh, it doesn't stop being what it is, but it stops being able to bond or react or ionize and things like that. Or it helps it to bond and ionize to something else that's in the tank, like oxygen, like sulfur or something. It helps it become a gas, for instance, adding energy to the equation. That's more rare though. But I mean, because of that, think about dechlorinators not as something that takes the chlorine out of the water necessarily, but something that locks up ammonia and chlorine. It locks it in a cage, and then your plants are going to say, "Oh, I'll eat that thing in the cage," and they're able to disassemble that and eat it out of the cage and use it as a nitrogen source. Whereas they could be using nitrates, nitrites, ammonium nitrate, or ammonia, or ammonium for that matter, in different forms. They're just different ions and different configurations of nitrogen at that point. But they can have different bonds that make it so they're not useful or harmful in other ways. Okay. Let's see here. I'm gonna skip down a little bit. Thanks, Johnny. I appreciate it. Love the super chats, buddy. Yeah, Jaeger, or in the U.S. some people say Jagger, but Jaeger. It's pronounced Jaeger, I'm pretty positive. Anyways, Jaeger were the best heaters I've used back in the 19. They also used to make really good inline. They're the only people who made inline heaters with canister filters where you could put it on the line to the canister. Now Owaze and a few other people I think have that same tech, and now like the Chinese have started making some other random brands. I'm sure Aquarium Co-op will come out with one canister filter that does everything like that too eventually. But you know, a good idea is going to spread. Alex, should I trim the bottom? Oh wait, Alex, should I trim the bottom of new stem plants before planting? So if you have, it's not a bad idea. Trauma to tissue in plants will result in stem cells, or what we call callus cells, just like your callus on your foot, making this thick layer of cells that are stem cells that are saying, "What should I do? What should I do?" And then they'll get a signal. If they're in dirt and there's nutrients around them, they'll get the signal, "Start grabbing nutrients." If there's nothing in the dirt, but they feel flow and movement, then they'll say, essentially, "Start growing up and down, anchor yourself." You know, so there's these different growth signals that get given out in the form of um, auxins, AUXINs, that then tell the plant what to do. But when you break them, or even just like using your thumb to break off, like if you've got a stem this big and you just break off like that much of the bottom, or take an X-Acto knife and score it in an X, that can help it grow and settle in. But the best way is always to trim the crown of a plant that down. It's going to be the brightest color and the healthiest. It's going to grow up, and it's hopefully going to grow denser because it's already got dense growth that's healthy and bright colored at the top, might be red, whereas the rest of the plant's green or yellow. And you want to just take those crowns and replant those crowns, usually next to the last one. So you leave the bottom of the stem in, it will form a new crown as long as it has access to light and nutrients, and then you can put the next one next to it. So you can really quickly grow them up, especially if you cut them short and they're all like this tall. They're all like under 6 inches or so above the soil line. Then you can cut them when they hit 10 inches, for instance. You can cut them back down to say 5 inches, and double, and then double, and then double, and pretty soon, within like maybe 2 weeks each generation, like you can get like Rotalas, Ludwigias with highlight CO2 fertilizers. you can get them to grow an inch a day in some situations, and a dense inch every 2 or 3 days, like a quality inch. So yeah. Um, let's see here. Well, guys, I gotta get going just because apparently my phone is about to die. I started a nano shrimp tank, Emmanuel says. Unfortunately, I've noticed that regardless of trying to keep best conditions in the aquarium, some of my cherry shrimp keep dying randomly. My ghost shrimp are strong. So ghost shrimp can withstand very, very, very hard water generally, and all sorts of different parameters generally. They're a lot of times from brackish water. I would maybe check if there's any ammonia. They also can withstand a little more ammonia, but I would look up online what the parameters are for neocaradinas wherever you bought them or got them, if it's possible. If not, go to like Aquatic Arts or Garden of Eater or Flip Aquatics, somewhere who sells them online, and look up their profile on them and see if your water matches. Test your water. That's the best thing you could do right now. Hopefully that will help you out a lot. You'll probably see that, oh, my pH is like way too hard. Like I got 8.4 and 900 total dissolved solids. Or, oh, I got 5.0 Coca-Cola brackish water, and hopefully that will help. I bet something will stand out to you. Other than that, remember we talked about temperature and just shocking them in general, but that didn't seem like your issue, I wouldn't guess. But copper could be an issue, or any sort of pesticides. Also, people sometimes clean their tank or clean pictures above their aquarium. Things like Windex can fall after being aerosolized, or like Glad for cleaning like hardware, like wood furniture and stuff. All of that stuff can be really deadly, even in trace amounts to fish. Even painting in a room, even when it's not aerosolized, or adhesives, all that stuff can be harmful. Anything with basically a propellant in it can be rough on fish if it comes out of a spray container. But guys, I hope you're all doing great. If you haven't yet, go over to Discord, look up Fishery, or just go to the description of this video or my last few live streams, last few videos, and go to the description, and there will be a link that takes you to Discord. If you are a Mac user, don't buy it on your phone if you can help it. Go to a desktop that is PC or Linux. Go to the Android or Google store and buy your subscription via that way. I think you can in some countries and some browsers, you can also get the app from discord.com and then download the browser interface or an app for your device or tablet, and then you can subscribe through there. But it will save you 30% of what the Apple iPhone or Apple e-store, the Apple store wants to sell it as. So they'll sell it to you. They'll give you, instead of $2.99, everything's like or $4.39, I think is what it came to with tax and everything. Pretty bad. They're pretty bad. What's up with grapewood? I've had people put it in aquariums. There is one kind that somebody told me was not the best. Search that one though, but I'm pretty sure as long as it's been bleached by the sun and soaked a while, you'll be all right. Blessings from Pakistan. Salam. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. I'm sorry we're headed out. Guys, also, Hurricane Milton is headed straight for my favorite part of Florida, that central nature coast. Lucas Brett's, Grant Eater, Shelby Eater, their kids, their new baby they just had last week. There's a lot of great people there. Ryan Kinney, the Space Coast Club, Venice, Sarasota, Hernando County, Pasco County Club, all these great places. People I've talked to, Tampa, St. Pete. Please be safe. I hope that you're headed now. I hope you can't hear me right now. I hope you're getting out of the way, getting to high ground. This could be a really, really bad storm flooding wise. And please take care. I just got a hold of some people in Asheville, North Carolina, and it is not good. There are hundreds of people deceased, it sounds like. The news hasn't even gotten into the back haulers and things there. And my high school sweetheart and her husband and her family, they live there in the city, and they passed bodies when they were going to get water 2 days ago. And they have a cell link thanks to link, what's it called? Starlink. Um, that people are setting up. But apparently, there's hubs and there's like way too much food at some places and nothing up the road for other places. So my thoughts are with those people, let alone any fish, but that's kind of like way beyond the scope of what's going on right now in Appalachia. So my thoughts are with those people. And if you guys live in the surrounding areas, I'm thinking of even doing something with the channel to try to help out, but just trying to understand the situation and what's needed because it's such a complex issue. Obviously, money is needed, but sometimes you want to wait till 6 months after a problem and then help out with local issues, and your money goes a lot farther. And that's something that strategically we want to do as a community here is how can we make the most influence with the least amount of money and the most amount of volunteer time or whatever it may be. But there may be opportunities you could take in someone's fish. Maybe you have power and somebody doesn't an hour away. Be looking on social media. And if you can be the change that you would want to see in your community, please take action and share about it. Tell us about it. Go viral. Those are the kind of things that would. And get your minute of fame or whatever. Don't feel bad about it, but encourage others to do, things to help. And, in some cases, they're going to have way too much water. Other places, they probably have all their drinking water spoiled. So, just think smart about how you can help the most. And some of us are all the way up in Seattle, Washington, and it's like, I don't know what I can do from here that's super helpful other than talk from a platform online, which seems pretty underwhelming. But I got to get going, you guys. Please take care. Take care of each other. Take care of your critters. 3 more likes and we're at 100. So double tap that screen if you haven't yet. I would love that. And thanks for hanging out. We'll do another live stream, most likely Friday, maybe another day if I'm, depending on how I'm feeling. I might try to preemptively do it if I know that I'm running low on by Friday. But it's always good to hang out with you guys. We'll probably look at some new fish. They've discovered a lot of new species. Probably the next video will be more probably sitting at a desk looking at video content of new fish, talking about some fish news and science. I do have enough of a script that it said it would be an hour long in my teleprompter app. So I was debating what to do with that too. There's this deep dive into corruption in the Ecuadorian Amazon and gold mining and how bad that is right now and how much it's impacting the rainforest, the river, as well as in Guyana and like Brazil and basically the whole Guianan shield as well, and Venezuela, and how Venezuela is providing weapons and equipment and fuel and mercury as well as arsenic for the clandestine gold miners. And those things are legal in some places, but they're bringing it in a roundabout way, and they're trying to claim more territory for Venezuela, and they're having these settlers do it that are impoverished people, and they're running into the indigenous people along the river as their only form of transportation. There's no road between Venezuela and Brazil. You can't drive there. You have to take a boat or a plane, and they want to build a road down to that area, and it will change things, and it could even result in a war. But right now it's resulting in over 200 indigenous people came out of the jungle and were starving to death and wanted help and wanted medicine and food. And that's very, very unusual. They usually come out hostile because they've only met loggers and illegal miners and uh, runners that are up to no good and tend to kill them, and they pass down that. And it's just it's really unfortunate because that area has the most uncontacted tribes, and they're the saddest part is they're uncontacted, but they've seen planes, they've seen shirts, they've seen Coca-Cola cans, they've seen knickknacks, they've seen guns, they've seen stuff from the outside world, and they said in the 50s and 60s, no, we're going to go deeper into the forest. We don't want to die of smallpox or disease, and we don't want to die of alcohol and gambling and the things that we're seeing when they were having early contact with outsiders. And they made a choice to move away. And there is a, word of mouth. Their families, some of them went to go live in the city, and they ended up in the ghettos, not knowing how to read and write, and not, working very impoverished jobs. And literally they've gone back out to the nature to do logging and mining and all these other jobs that pay better than other things. And they've literally ran into their old Amerindian, extended family and been like, whoa, you guys, what are you doing? Like, what have you been up to? My dad 20 years ago stayed with you guys when I decided to move to the city with my cousins. It's such a crazy thing that's going on. And, they think there's over 100 tribes in that state and only about a dozen left that are truly, truly isolated without word from the outside world, making it game of telephone style through tribe to tribe. But yeah, crazy that they would come out, almost 200 of them like that. And the mining and stuff is obscene, and I want to cover it. It feels important to me, but I know it won't do well on the channel, and I know it's going to take up a lot of time. So let's talk about it in the Discord before I spend an hour of anybody's time making a video. But I would really like to cover it because there have been Mung Bay journal articles, and BBC and Interpol has put out alerts. The UN, IUCN, Red List people have put out alerts. So there's a lot of good sourced information by governments that's not contested about what's going on, and it's a tragedy. So on that note, have a good night. No, on that note, be safe, take care of your critters, and take care of yourself, or you can't do any of the other things or worry about the world. I will see you guys later. Much love. Take care. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time.